to talk a little bit about mindfulness this time. I don't think I talked about it last time. I'm encouraging you to be mindful of the feelings, the urges, the images that come up in your mind when we're doing this. Why? Because it's probably the same thing that's gonna happen when you're dealing with your kids and when you're talking to kids about this stuff. So that you're not blindsided by your own big feelings, so that you can keep pushing through your own big feelings. Be mindful of them as they come up now, and you can honor those feelings. Like I say, you don't have to participate in everything, but just understand and try not to center your own feelings of discomfort, because that won't let us get further, right? And also mindfulness is just helpful as we're going through our day, encountering different people. Like, did I just grab my purse? Do I think I need to cross the street? Did I think that person probably doesn't speak English? You know, just let that mindfulness come to you, and then you can say, oh, maybe I should check that, right? Maybe I should do something different. So, I know we wanted to go back through the WAND framework, so I wanted to start that first. So the WAND framework is something that you can use when you see that a harm has occurred, right? It stands for witness, aid, negate, and divert or divulge. So the witness part is, sorry, these are definitely gonna come off. Is you see that someone had said something mean to someone else. Again, we're gonna use the language that the kids use. So I may say things that are triggering to you. I'm telling you ahead of time. I think we can't beat it if we can't put light on it, if we can't see it and talk about it, okay? So, you witness a kid say, gosh, what's something that these kids are saying?
Gay.
Gay, right, okay, and we're definitely gonna get deep into that. That's so gay, right? Or why are you so gay, right? Which is crazy because I thought we left that in the 90s. I definitely remember that being said in the 90s. I can't believe it's back. So the most important thing you can do for the kid that is harmed by that is to witness the harm. It's so easy to be like, oh, I'm just gonna let that be between them. But that tells the kid who's harmed that they have no sanctuary, right? That nobody is there to support them, nobody cares about them. So the most important thing that you can do is witness. I heard you say that, Bob, right? And then, I don't know, John, I'm making up names. Are you okay? That's rendering aid, right? Or, John, let me give you attention, right? Because so many times kids do this because they want attention. Aid and attention to the person that's hurt. The next thing you must do is to negate, right? That's wrong. We don't say that. And you can go further into why, and we'll talk about how to do, you know, this is why you don't call people, things gay. And then you want to divert. If it's a kid, maybe, and the kid is using the wand, the kid can just take their friend off somewhere. If it's an adult, adults, you need to debunk it. That's not right, we don't say that, and this is why. But using this framework will also establish you as a safe person. You don't need to tell kids that you're a safe person because the kids already know who's safe, okay? They already know who witnesses their harms, who tries to render aid, who comes out and says that's wrong, and who then further explains why that's wrong. So are there any questions about the wand? Because we're gonna go deeper into it. Okay, great. So let me see what is next. Okay. Now I know there was some talk about, can we say a racist thing is racist? Yes. Right? We're not telling the child you're a racist because you said this thing, but you absolutely must say the thing you said was racist. Why? Because racism is not unkindness. Homophobia is not unkindness. They're like unkindness plus. Because racism gets you killed. Racism is Ahmaud Arbery going for a run right here in our metro area and being killed. Those guys weren't unkind. They were racist, okay? When, oh gosh, I don't remember the name of the shooter, but in 2021, he shoots up all those Asian spas and killed those women. And then the cop said, you know, he had a bad day. That's not unkind. Okay, racism is a matter of life and death. It's a matter of being able to prosper. It's a matter of a wealth gap. It is all those things. So we have to call it out. And it's helpful because nobody actually wants to be called or be known as someone who does racist things, right? So it puts a hard stop to that kind of behavior. The same thing with homophobia, right? Ryan White, kids who are harming themselves because other people make fun of them or they think they won't belong or have friends because they love differently than the majority of people. That is not just unkindness. It leads to death. It leads to pain. Okay? So I think now so here are some things that I know kids say to each other at the elementary schools near me. I'll just give you my thoughts on them, and I would love to hear your thoughts on them, and we can do some practice bonding. Okay, so the N-word. A lot of people, you know, particularly if you're white, you don't even want to say it to your kid, to say you shouldn't say this. And I understand that, but don't be scared, okay? You have, one thing that someone told me that I really appreciated was, why can't, you know, white kids say it if black kids say it or rappers say it? And one thing that someone said to me that I thought was great was, when black people use it, they are taking the power out of it. It becomes a tool to reclaim that word, which has been a weapon for hundreds of years. When people who are not white use it, it becomes a weapon. I mean, excuse me, who are not black use it, it becomes a weapon again in their mouth. Whoops. So that's, you know, something you can use. But you can explain the history of the word is that you were less than a person. You had no rights. You were 3/5 of a person. You could be sold, raped, beaten, killed. Yes.
Can you slow down just a little bit?
Oh, yes, of course.
Oh, thank you.
I'm happy I need some water today.
Let me know when you want to refill.
Okay, thank you. Terrorist is something that my understanding is that they're saying in the elementary schools now. This is supposed to be an Arab terrorist. Yes, they really think they're slick, huh? If you run into, examples of kids making fun of like Middle Eastern kids or Muslim kids, one thing you can do is say, how would you like it if you were judged by the very worst actions of someone who just looks like you, or who's just from where you're from, or worships the way you worship, right? Do you think that's fair? Is that how you would want to be treated? Also, it's wrong. It paints everybody with this super broad brush that is just not correct. And it's not fair because people of all backgrounds commit tons of crimes, okay? And it's not just the purview of one group. They apparently also use Chinese cutting. Has anyone heard that? It's apparently when you're in a line and you say, can I Chinese cut you? And that means the person lets you in front of them and then you let that person back in front of you. Does that make sense? It's ridiculous. It hurts the feelings of East Asian kids who are around and hear that. What does this mean? You can ask the kid, what do you even mean by that? Do you mean that Chinese people cheat? You can't possibly mean that, do you? And then we're also gonna talk more about immigration, but this notion of a wetback, of an illegal. No person is illegal. People can be without documentation, but they are not illegal. And how dare you try to characterize how someone may or may not have come to this country, because all of us have an immigration story at some point, right? And of course, gay, we talked about before. So I would love for us to do some wand practice. You can do it in pairs, and then maybe if your pairs want to break out and tell us how you approached some of the stuff that the kids are saying, or some of these options up here. Break.
Amara.
I think, yeah. So they're gonna pair up?
Amara. Do you want to pause this? I don't know how to do that.
Let's just leave it.
Okay, we'll edit it. Okay. Things from the other, like, I think they were saying they were gonna, like, keep out the, like, the dialogue or whatever.
Yes, choose one, or choose one that you've heard your kids talk about somebody saying.
I'd be like, the Chinese getting things, I've heard them do that, but I haven't heard them work. I've never heard of either. Oh, like, both my kids have complained so much about that in the lunch line. Like, so-and-so just cuts, and then they cut, and then they let their friend cut, and then the other friend cut, and then, like, so I never get, so he's like, I never get lunch. She's the slowest eater in the world. So I'm like, hey, can I Chinese cut? Okay, so, role playing. Okay, so how about I'll be the, like, Maria, you're such, like, you're so evil, you're not even supposed to be here, you should go home. Okay, so how would you respond to that in our one? I'm a child. Are you another child? How about you're another child? Okay, that's helpful. We'll try that one first. Don't say that about our friends. No person is illegal. But like, they are. How do you know that? How do you know that? I didn't know that. In this country. Yeah, I know. To be a child. So what would be next? Aid, right? So you would. Hi, Miss Misha.
Oh, great, I'll keep it up. Yes, so I remember to slow it down. Yes, I will.
Perfect. So that's the devoting, right? So the aid is like, it would be like,
Right.
Like just making sure that they're like, right? Yeah. So like, that's not cool. I heard that. You know, so like I witnessed it. Are you okay? Are you okay? Yeah. Okay. And then it's the negate. You know, like no people are illegal. Yeah. I think that's what divert. Yeah. Let's go play on the mic first. Okay. What would we do? How would we do that differently if we were an adult in this situation? So you overheard the little daughter telling Marina, you should go home.
If they speak slowly, I will. But you know, when people just.
So that's the either divert or debunk. So in this case, you kind of are. So yeah. So what's like the negate versus debunk? I think it's more like so the negate is like you don't speak to each other like that. Like that's not okay. And then the divert, the debunk is like telling them why. No person is illegal. Like people's documentation status is different, but we all came here from somewhere. That's right. I would probably turn to economics. Because you know, like, we have to make how much people come in
Yeah.
when we grow.
I know. Right, way in advance. Yeah. That's that.
Oh, this just feels mean.
Like the 4 year.
Okay, do you want to try to do one? Okay. Yes.
So yeah, whatever
I don't either, I know.
I did studying, but it's still, no, but it's still.
I was asking, you know, last week about the thing, I was like,
Yeah, totally.
like, we were having, I know that, so mad.
Well, I think because I can come tell you.
Trans,
It's the same thing with
like,
you.
how we guys experienced so much going on at 15, and it came out. And I was talking with Lisa about it, you know, and I was asking Jane about it.
Thank you.
Like, I was never,
Oh, yeah, you know.
nobody would feel comfortable saying that, you know, like, maybe girls would be okay sharing that thing, but my whole like other girls.
Yes, I will.
And so you're like, oh yeah, absolutely, everyone in third grade just calls each other gay all the time, like, it's a total, like, it's just an insult, like, yeah, especially the boys. Right? That's what I was like, okay, yeah. And actually, now that I think about it, I made I heard her Tucker say that. But it's coming out like a lot. So I guess if someone decided if you were like, oh, you know, I guess I'd be like, hey, like, that's not okay. Are you, like, Johnny, like, are you okay? I mean, are you okay? Like, how are you doing? Okay, I heard that. Like, we don't comment on, you know, anyone's, you know, how would you say that? How would you phrase that? Because you're not really talking about, like, because they're not talking about who there's something wrong.
Can I look at the cookie?
Shouldn't be.
Yes, of course.
Okay.
I should turn them around, you're right.
No,
They're not for me.
you're fine.
Okay.
For my own kids.
Oh, okay.
I would like to get one for my own kids.
Oh, okay.
Which one do you want?
Well, how old are they?
I have a 13-year-old and a 7-year-old.
Okay, so these are gonna be more like for your 7-year-old.
But I think this is the piece that I would get stuck on is that it's not an insult.
Yeah.
If we're saying it's not an insult, and then we're turning it around and saying, but maybe I think you have to be very clear that you're using it as
So,
an
you know,
insult.
it's graphic,
Like,
and like
it's
that.
not an insult,
And
you're
this
using
is
it
a
as an
girl
insult, or not, you know.
who is
I
an
think part of it
athlete,
is that
a wheelchair athlete.
they're not there yet identifying, right? So I think that's a tricky one for me, actually, that maybe I would love to get some her take on that, like how she would do with that, because like I don't want to equate, it's almost the same thing as with like they're the term, I can take apart, but it's also there's nothing wrong with it. Like it's just a thing, and I think with that I can point to everyone's been an immigrant at some point, everyone's, like she said, everyone's got an immigration story, but everyone might not have a story, you know, right.
Do you want more time?
That person, you know, personally, so.
Take that as a yes.
Okay.
We're about good?
I have questions.
Oh, great.
I have questions for you.
Good. Are we about ready to take a pause and come back to the group? I'm really interested to hear what happened, what you thought about, what came up for you. Jenny said you had some questions.
Yeah, we were just wondering a little bit about, you know, we were kind of role-playing with some of the words and you know, things like, particularly gay, I think was a tricky one. Just I think, you know, we wanted to say, okay, we don't use words, we don't insult people, we don't, you know, but we also don't want to equate the word with an insult, if you know what I mean. Like, it's not necessarily a bad thing to be gay, but your kids are using it that way.
Right.
And I think especially at an age where they aren't yet figuring, they don't really know, they're not in their sexuality yet. That's not something to, you know, it's not something like if you are, you know, an undocumented immigrant, that is a thing.
Yeah.
In second and third grade, that's not quite yet a thing.
That's right.
Necessarily, or they haven't become aware of it. So how do we, like, what's that navigation like?
Well, I have some thoughts. Did everybody else hear her question? Yeah. So do you have any thoughts on how you would approach that with a kid?
Honestly, I think in this new generation and the times we're in, you now have to have those conversations with your children. Unfortunately, because again, I work in kindergarten, this week. It was like, I don't know what they had going on, but it was going around like crazy this week. In my class, I literally heard a student say on Monday, and then in cafeteria, another class, in a different kindergarten class. One of the girls called the boy that, and the teacher was like, do you know what that actually means?
There you go.
Do you know what it means? It means, as one of the, me as a parent, I would have had that conversation with my child about what it means and what it is. But as a teacher, my preference would only be telling you, hey, do you know what that means? Let's not say that word. If you need further reference, please go to your parent. Cause my coworker was like telling them, I'm like, ooh, no.
So what did your coworker say?
I'm
I'm
like,
like,
it's when this says and this says like shoving this. I'm like, I wouldn't have done all of it.
Okay.
Because this is not my child.
right.
My children is different. I'm gonna have that conversation. I was looking at her like, okay. She was all across the cafeteria. I'm here, and I'm like, yeah, I wouldn't have done that part. But
Okay.
that was the topic for this week. Seems like for
Okay.
kindergartens at work. That was their topic. They walk around doing this, and then I'm like, what that mean? They like, yeah, I'm like, okay.
Right.
This week was the topic.
I do think that adults get really tied up in gay, right? Because they're like, do I have to tell kids about what happens in a bedroom?
No.
And the answer is, I mean, if you're a parent and you want to, have that. But I don't think that that's actually the most important part about dealing with homophobia, right? Because what we're really talking about is different family structures, right? For when we're talking about elementary school kids, we're not talking about what happens in the parents' bedroom. They don't know what happens in their heterosexual parents' bedrooms, and they don't know what happens in their homosexual parents' bedrooms, right? For them, it's about family structure. So I'm gonna go into family structure on the next slide. I do think that you can approach it a couple of different ways. I really love, do you know what that means, right? And then it means that two boys are in a relationship together, or two girls are in a relationship together. And that's it. You don't have to explain the content of that relationship. But specifically, when I heard you say the girls saying it, have your second and third graders understand that to call someone or something gay is an insult to women, females, girls. What you are saying is the reason it's bad to be a gay man is because a gay man is too feminine. A gay man is too close to being a woman, and being a woman is shameful. Being a woman is not something you want to be, right? So it is anti-feminist, right, to call people gay as a slur because you think what they're doing is feminine or weird or whatever, right? Gay does not mean weird. Gay does not mean, effeminate, right? When we're talking about relationships, gay just means same-sex couple. Boom, bam, done.
I think that's the piece that I get stuck on, is that, like, I don't think that's, it's not a bad term. So then,
Exactly.
but the kids, I think that's a good point of, like, parsing out, like, why it's being used like a bad, why it's being used like an insult.
Right, why are you saying it like that? And, again, once you have kids who are about 7 years old and over, they're in the age of empathy. So they don't necessarily want to make third parties feel bad, right? So you can say, somebody might hear you who might be gay. They don't know yet, but you're making them feel like they don't belong here. You're making them feel like they can't be a part of your friend group. They can't be a part of your community. They might have parents who they know are gay, right? And you're making them feel like something's wrong with their family. So don't do it, right? Any other suggestions or thoughts on that in particular? Okay. Does anybody else want to share stuff that popped up in their breakouts, in their groups? Amara, please.
One thing I was talking to Ms. Relaford about, we were talking about trans with our kids, being trans and what it means. And she was saying that, faith. And what she has figured out is that, or the way that she talks about with her child is that God has a plan that she can't understand. And so she can feel whatever she feels, but it's not her job to try to like impose her feelings on somebody else, that everybody has their own journey, and she kind of like releases the need to be involved in deciding what their journey should be. So I thought that was a really nice way to like hold on to her faith and help her child be, loving to all people.
I think that's great. And I think something else to tee up, I mean, what she teed up for me is this notion of acceptance, understanding, and respect. Okay? I have a very close family member who I love so much. And he's cray about trans. To me, he's cray, right? They don't exist, it's not real, it can't be. I don't get it. But guess what? You don't have to get it. You don't have to understand everything. People aren't asking you to understand them. They're asking you to respect. They're asking you to please just refer to them with these pronouns. Is it gonna kill you? Right? So there are all sorts of things that we have going on in our lives that other people may not understand. And we're not asking them to understand. I'm not asking you to get why I do everything I do. I just need you to respect me as a person of divine being and treat me accordingly. Okay? Yes.
One thing that came up in our group was, do the kids actually know what these words mean? Because a lot of people tell their kids don't use the N-word, but like, do they actually know what that word means? And I think too, when you were speaking about like Black people taking ownership of it, you're not gonna hear a Black person use a hard ER on the word. And so like understanding those differences, and even here in a dual language immersion school, we have the program in the school, like Negro, like it means the color Black, but like the kids here at the school like to, the older kids who understand like to like say you're doing something wrong by saying the word, or like try to make fun of the teacher because they're saying the word, they're like, oh, see, she says it, and things like that. So actually having the kids like understand what the words are, and like even like for like my kids, when we're talking about illegal and things like that, like I was just thinking like, we don't use the words at home, but they're also, because of the environment that they're in, we actually need to have a conversation about like what those words mean. And then luckily my kids bring a lot of words home to me to ask what they mean, because they can see how they're being used, and like I think that they feel like there's a negative connotation, and so they come home and they ask like what this means. We've had words about like Chinese people come home. I mean, we even had my son came home and asked what a hoe was, and my daughter went on this whole spiel about like it's a gardening tool, and she was doing great or whatever, and he goes, no, like if someone comes up to you on the playground and says, you a hoe, what's that mean? And he obviously knew it wasn't a gardening tool. So like just actually like making sure that the kids know some of these words, just given the environment that we're in and like the political climate that we're in, like what these words actually mean, even if they're not words we use in our household.
I completely agree with that. Knowledge is power. And, a lot of times as parents, I'm a parent, I don't know if I told you, I have 3 kids. One is turning 13 today. I know, it's not happening. But yes, thank you.
Yeah, yes, exactly.
But, as parents, we want to protect our kids so much, right? We don't want them to know there's ugly in the world. We don't want to tell them that people call each other these names. But I bet most of us have talked to our kids about kidnapping. I bet most of us have said, do not talk to strangers, do not get into somebody's car, do not take candy. I mean, I do whole enactments with my kids, right? And it's a little much. But we do that not because we're afraid of SAP. We do it because we want to make sure we keep our kids safe, right? We do it because we're not more afraid that our kids will know that there's evil outside of our doors. We're more afraid that they might get caught up in that evil, right? And if you talk to your kids as they get older about gangs or drugs, these are all things that you are admitting that there's something bad out there. But you talk about it because you want to protect them. And it's the same thing with racism, it's the same thing with all these words, because what these kids are trying to do, these kids here are not racist. I don't believe they're racist. I believe that these are shortcuts for getting at somebody, right? These are shortcuts for tweaking you. They may not even really understand what a hoe is, right? But they know it's mean. They know I can tweak you if I say it. So we really have to explain to our kids what these words are, and you do not use them, and this is why. And share with them the WAN framework, right? Share with them that they can tell somebody, no, don't say that, and walk your friend away. We read a book, Always Anjali, last time, which I forgot to bring this time, but it's about a girl who gets bullied for her name, right? Because her name is not normal. And her friends are standing there looking like this, because they don't know what to do. We equip our kids with what to do. No, that's nice, not nice. Angela, let's go hit those swings. Now Angela has a real ally, right? A real friend. This book I wanted to share with you before we go on. So this book is called Bathe the Cat. I won't read it, but you're welcome to check it out. It's a book about this family getting ready for grandma to come visit. And it has to be clean. The area has to be clean. The house has to be clean for grandma. And it's two dads. There is nothing about what the dads do in the bedroom in the book. The point of the book is to get the house clean for Grandma Marge. And so these are the kinds of books that you can read to your kids, that you can talk about different family structures, right? So a cool thing about when you start talking about family structures is you can talk about all kinds of different family structures and what the real purpose of a family structure is, right? A family's purpose is to love and care for the people in the family. So if that is happening in your family, in your friends' families, then y'all are doing it right. You might have a single parent headed family, right? My mom and my dad got divorced when I was like 2, so I don't even have any memories of them together. But I do remember being at school and teachers telling me that they were so sorry that I came from a broken home. And I didn't think my home was broken. Like, I was really happy. But it made me think that something was weird about my home. Something was wrong about my home life. But my family was doing what it was supposed to do. They were loving and caring for me. So when you can talk about to your kid about LGBTQIA family structures, you can talk about all the different family structures. There are kids who live with like divorced parents where they go back and forth from house to house. There are kids who live with their grandparents, kids that live with their aunts and uncles, kids that live, I just ran out of examples, but in lots of different family structures. And the point isn't to rank them. The point isn't to decide who is the best and who is the worst. The point is to say everybody is getting the love and care that they need. So these are some of the points that you can talk about when someone says, why do they have 2 dads, right? And again, in elementary school, we're usually not talking about bedroom stuff. So what we don't want to do is have kids feel like they don't belong because they have 2 moms or 2 dads. You're literally coming into the classroom trying to get in your circle for circle time, and somebody rolls up on you like, why do you have 2 moms? And the kid is like, now I'm out of my, what? Why are you messing with my peace, right? If kids have curiosity, healthy curiosity, maybe the first thing to do is ask a parent, your own parent, about why does Jenny have 2 moms. But if you're very good friends with Jenny, then yeah, you can ask Jenny herself. But pointing these things out to make someone feel like they don't belong because their family structure isn't what they saw on television yesterday is not okay, and it breaks apart that classroom community. It breaks apart what the kids need in order to feel safe and be able to learn. Are there any like thoughts or anything about that? Okay. So I don't have a slide about disability, but I was asked to talk about disability. I have some really cool, yes.
Hablando de discapacidades que te mencionó, la página previa, sí podría considerar agregar a eso la palabra loca o loco.
Okay, so Ms. Nija, talking about the previous list that you have of words, say, what's your name?
Stephanie?
Stephanie is asking, could you add the word loca?
Yes, yes.
Crazy.
Crazy.
Yes, yes. I know that.
Ella habla un poco de español.
Okay. Trabajo ayudando con situaciones de salud mental y cada vez que dice alguien, oh, tú eres loco, es solamente haciendo lo mismo, o sea, tú eres gay, tú eres ilegal, es igual.
Un insulto.
Sí, es igual un insulto para las personas que tienen condiciones y discapacidades.
Okay. She works she helps out or assists in situations with patients who have mental issues, and sometimes people use the word loca, as an insult to them, to these people who may have a condition. So that's what she sees in her job.
No, igual nosotros.
Yeah, the kids do it too,
Se
right?
dijo hoy en este salón, oh, eso es loco.
Oh, like it happened here in this classroom. Like when they say, oh, that's a crazy thing. That's crazy.
Right, right.
O tú eres.
Oh, you are crazy.
Yes.
Entonces es igual como decir y las otras cosas.
Miss Stephanie thinks it has the same hurting value as that list of words.
I think that's right. Amar.
I was just gonna say that's one that I'm learning to use more consciously, because it's been a part of my vocabulary for a long time. And I think the moment like this, like I've heard Nisha use the word crazy during this workshop. And I think this is like some of the really important work we have to do, is to be able to like gently, like you just did, Stephanie, raise each other's consciousness and humbly accept the like awareness raising and do better. Like I think I'm not sure exactly how to do that gracefully, but that's something I'm really trying to learn for myself, because when I want people to know something, I often come at them like kind of angry or like judgmental of what they don't know, and I feel like that usually doesn't work. So I think this is actually a really great learning opportunity in real time for us.
Yes, absolutely, and thank you for bringing that up. I didn't even realize I used crazy. I apologize. I do think it should be on here because there's such a strong mental health stigma, right? Like, and I have a child, my second daughter has like severe developmental disabilities, and I mean, I used to always use the R word, right? Retarded. I used to use that all the time. And now it's like, oh yeah, let me cool, right? So we are learning every day, and hopefully we're getting a little bit better every day. So many kids, you know, my oldest child is in those early teen years, and so many kids are self-harming, so many kids are just really hurting, and so to say crazy, like they can't be helped, right? Crazy, like they're beyond the reach of whatever normal society is really painful. So thank you for bringing that up, and that is something that we should keep in mind. Oh, right, I wanted to talk about, well, we'll get there, but I did want to talk quickly. I have some books about kids with different disabilities.
Tengo libros sobre niños con
Abdul's
diferentes
story is
discapacidades,
about a boy with a
historia de
learning
Abdul,
disability,
es una
and how
discapacidad,
he learns to sort of work through it,
y cómo
so that
aprende
he
a
can
superar
do
su
better in
discapacidad.
school. But, you know, when you read books like these to your kids, you make the characters real, and you can talk about the characters, without necessarily having to be like, oh, you know, your friend that's not doing great in school. Right. There's another book, this is for younger kids, it's called Char Bear Keeps Dancing. This is about, a little girl who has pediatric epilepsy. And, you know, sort of what her parents go through, but mostly like how the little girl's super resilient. And I know we have a lot of like autism diagnoses. And so this, My Brother Charlie, is about, actually Holly Robinson Pete's son, Charlie, who is autistic. Right, so it's really good to just have books that normalize these kids, that normalize all the different ways of being in the world. And it's okay, right? And if you have a kid who's saying, God, you know, kids are saying really mean things about X, Y, or Z. They're saying Abdul is dumb because he can't read. Well, I mean, his brain is actually working differently, right? Okay. Oh, and WCMX Daredevil is fun. It's a little sort of graphic novel for readers kind of in this age group. This little girl is in a sports ball in a wheelchair. Now, time is flying.
We have a question.
Oh, yes, question.
Solo si podía agregar una forma buena de hablar sobre discapacidad, es que discapacidad es algo natural que nos va a suceder a todos, sea en el comienzo de nuestra vida, sea en la mitad, al final de nuestra vida, y nadie hace nada solo. Todos necesitamos ayuda.
Could you, Misha, please teach us or show us a way to speak about disability?
No hablar solo una sugerencia de cómo.
Okay,
Yo
yes,
estaba
give
dando-
us a suggestion about how to speak about
Yo
disability.
estaba dando la sugerencia.
Sí. Because disability is something that can happen to anybody, either at the beginning of their life, in the middle, or closer to the end. And it's a hard topic to approach sometimes, so how to talk about it.
Well, I have a book for that. I would definitely suggest when you have a young child, go through with the books. Start with the books because it is a really easily accessible way to also empathize with a person who has different abilities, right? So, but we always talk about, I'm Christian, right? So I always tell my children, God made you perfectly, including the one who has lots of challenges. I have to tell myself all the time, God made her perfectly, even though she had a poop blowout at 6 o'clock this morning. Somebody, Lord, have mercy, take the wheel. But he made her perfectly, and it's my problem if I can't accept her, right? So it's not for us to judge people, it's for us to help people in the way that they want to be helped, right? So, there's this great Netflix show. It's called You Can't Talk About That, or You Can't Say That. It's one of the two. And each episode, they have different people with a different, I guess, under a different category. Deaf, blind, it's Australia, so they literally have one of black people. Anyways, people who have suffered through domestic violence. Oh yeah. People who suffer through domestic violence, people who have suffered through alcoholism. And what they do is these people are sitting in a chair and they grab a question out of a bag, a question that you can't ask. You can't ask that. Yeah, you can't, and it's so good. Like because my 13-year-old just asked me, what do you think blind people can see? I don't know, but somebody asked that on this show, and so we can watch it together and talk about it. blind people are saying, don't grab my arm and drag me across the street. Not helpful, right? But so what we want to do is hear from the people who are living through the thing, right? To the extent you can. Like, I don't know if they're gonna have an episode on autism. Like, my child is nonverbal, so she can't tell you, but even nonverbal autistic kids communicate with you. You know if they want you away, and you know if they want you close, right? So pay attention to people. Treat them, you know, the way you want to be treated. Does that help? Yes,
Sí,
please.
gracias.
I guess one of the things that you said, like, I think we're in a place where they're kids and people understand that they're children, and I think one of the things that I've been fortunate to lean into is that my kids are inquisitive. They will stare at you, like they would stare at you when they were younger, but I think one of the things, and it's just like all of the words, is actually talking about like what's going on. Like, my daughter has a friend, and she has Down syndrome, and so she wanted to know like what's going on with Nora, why does she act like this, she's older than me, and so actually like explaining to it, so then like when we're out, like my child is an advocate for her friend when people like try to downplay, and then like we have these experiences like about people being in wheelchairs. And so my brother, who was a normal functioning person, got into an accident, and he has a traumatic brain injury, so he doesn't walk and talk anymore. So my kids have gotten to experience that and be in a place where people are in wheelchairs and things for different reasons, and they ask questions. And the one thing that I realized, you know, at first I'm like, leave people alone, but the people will explain to you, explain to a child. Like adults might be different, but when children ask questions, they're willing to explain to them like what's going on, why they have disabilities, and then we have like, you know, disabilities that you can't see. Both of my kids are dyslexic, and so you have like those types of disabilities, and I think these books are really helpful. And there's one, it's not like about, it's white people, so it doesn't like relate to them as far as their skin color, but they read the book Thank You, Mr. Faulkner, and they were able to see like someone struggling with dyslexia, and they could relate to that person. And so like the same thing with these books, just giving them access to the information I think is really important. And like with the book and the wheelchair and the kids, just letting them ask, because I mean that's the biggest thing, and answer them truthfully. And I think that's the thing that we have in our society, is we don't answer them truthfully.
That's right. And you brought up a really important point, this notion of normalcy, right? So the idea normal includes some people and excludes a lot of people, depending on what issue we're talking about at the time, right? So I read a piece written by a person who is in a wheelchair. She's like in an electric wheelchair, and she was saying she was in the produce area of her local grocery store, and a mom was there with her child, and the child was like, oh my God, her chair is so awesome. You know, how does that work? And the mom was like, no, we don't talk about that. We don't talk about that. Right? So how do you think that makes the the person in the wheelchair feel, right? She said, I would have loved to tell that little girl or boy what my chair was all about, why I use it, and how it works. But don't exclude me from society. Don't act like it's too shameful. The way I get around is so shameful that we don't even talk about it, right? The things that we don't talk about are the things that we're ashamed of, right? So let us try to welcome everybody into normalcy. Any other thoughts? Yes, please.
I'm just having this moment where I'm realizing, so that list of words that you had that you don't want to say, and I'm thinking about how even when you're talking about disabilities, you're saying that it's important to speak about the disability, because the things that you don't speak about can be shameful, and that's the sense also with these words. If you're not saying these words, then you're increasing the shame that is associated with them. And so I didn't understand when we went over that list that you were saying that sometimes it's important to actually say the word as you're debunking
Yes.
that information, and I didn't understand why that was important until we started talking about disabilities, and for some reason that connects, my brain does crazy things.
We all get to things our own way.
Yeah, but even in our group, we were trying to discuss the N-word, and I was saying, I am adamant about not saying that word. And now I'm realizing as I'm talking, as I'm approaching it with my daughter, I am going to have to.
You have more power than it. You have more power than the N-word.
Right, and in that, help her to understand why this is a word that we don't use, just as I would when it comes to a disability. So I always wanna make sure that we talk about
That's right.
that, okay.
And one thing that, I learned with my preschool kid was, people get around all different ways. Some people get around on one leg, on two legs, one leg, in a chair. People take in the world all different ways. Some people with their eyes, some people with their ears. There are all kinds of ways of being in the world. And even, we watch Project Runway because it's one of the few shows that I can watch with my kids that I like, because I like true crime. So she sees, the 4-year-old sees Christian and Siriano, who is like probably like around my height, maybe a little taller, and his voice register is a little high. And so she says to me, "Mommy, why does that boy sound like a girl?" And I'm like, actually, right? People have all different voices. Some people have high voices, some people have low voices. You cannot assign a voice to a sex. You just don't know. But these are these good little teaching moments that we get throughout the day, and we can help expand our kids. Real quick, I want to talk about, okay, I have a little time. Immigration. So this is an adult book. It is so good. It's called Inventing Latinos, A New Story of American Racism by Laura Gomez. It's a little long, but it's really, really good, because what she does in this book is she goes through how did Latinos come to be. And she says there are no Latinos in Guatemala. There are Guatemalans. There are no Latinos in Mexico. There are Mexicans. It's when you get to the United States that people from all these different countries, all these different cultures and backgrounds get smashed together into one group called Latinos. And it's actually funny because my dad is from Panama, and he had lots of thoughts about people from other Latin American countries. And so it's just this notion of, if you're from the outside, you think, oh, all the Latinos are the same, and that is just not the case. And of course, it's the same with Asian Americans. But she has, let me see what this is. Okay, I'll go back. She has this quote. The first chapter is called, "We are here because you were there." Every time I say it, it gives me chill bumps. Because I just think it's so deep. Now, it comes from an Indian scholar who was speaking to the British Race Relations Institute, and he says, colonialism and immigration are part of the same spectrum. We are here because you were there. And so what Laura does is she goes into the long history of American colonialism, imperialism, and really obnoxious meddling in Latin America. And she talks about how that meddling has destabilized countries for like 200 years since we've got here. And it keeps happening. In the 80s, in the 90s, Maduro, like all these people were once supported by the United States, right? And she talks about how it's so convenient for Americans to use Mexico and Central America as an easy on-off spigot for a flow of cheap labor. When legal immigration quotas were expanded, the ones for Latin America were kept very narrow, so that you would have more people here with no rights who could be exploited and then can be used as scapegoats and deported, right? And then, oh, right, forgot we need them again, so let them come back into the country. Ask yourself, and these are things you can tell your kids, right? Who gets in trouble when a business is raided by ICE? Who? The who?
People.
Is it the business? Is the business owner?
People.
Exactly. It's the employees. It's not the bosses. The bosses know that they've got people there who aren't documented, but they don't get in trouble. Their lives aren't torn apart. Their families aren't torn apart. They're not even criminals. There's no civil fine. There's nothing, right? And so ask yourself this question. Why are people who look like this and like this said, you can't be white? And don't tell me they're olive skinned, because I always hear folks saying that people from Spain and Greece and Italy are olive skinned, but they're white, right? You have to keep somebody that you can use. And to use them, they have to be kept separate, right? So your kids, 3rd, 4th, 5th graders, they can handle you talking like this. They can handle you talking about policies that put people in a box that you ought not to have to be in. Books. Of like families in the school, they felt like it's narrowing the school to home gap, and that the kids are really into it, the families are really into it. In the first year, the PTO was the one that came up with all the ideas. But as the years went by, families started suggesting activities. Families started suggesting charities. So these are just some of the things that they did. You make bracelets for an advocacy center, placemats for senior centers, thank you cards for first responders and teachers. And these are all things that they could do at the big family kindness night and continue to earn raffle tickets for each thing that you got. And then there were rewards for kids who filled up their whole card. And they just go to the community, and sometimes way outside of the community, to ask for stuff. And people are really excited to give. I was super excited to give. But what's great is, so you see this is how it's grown. They're like been on the news. But most importantly, like families choosing causes that are meaningful for them. And you only have one thing. Now, this is great. Increase student empathy and social engagement, strengthen school-family connections, eliminated the need for additional fundraisers, and boosted teacher and student morale, and created lasting community partnerships with the school. So I definitely think that this might be something you all might want to consider as a PTO, because you might be able to see some of this, this word, that word, fall away as you're getting rewarded for being kind. So if you want to contact the parent, let me know. Interested in any of this, let me know. So I am starting an exclusive Facebook page community. I'm gonna move it off Facebook eventually, but right now I'm on Facebook. And it's called Jumbo Together. And the point of Jumbo Together is to get families, teachers, and parents specifically together to talk about how do we do this work? How do we support each other doing this work? And I don't want it to just be online. So many people are interested in doing this work and don't know they live near each other. So I'm gonna help to facilitate you getting together in real life. Because for the 4 years that we've got coming up, we're gonna need friends. And we need to have friends before we need friends. Does that make sense? If we're just coming together as strangers and hoping that we're gonna work, that's really hard. But if we pre-know each other, it's gonna make things so much easier to support each other in the very many struggles that we may have coming up. So I will also be dropping in here book summaries like Inventing Latinos, and I, know a lot of people in this space. We'll be doing interviews with them and leaving the recordings in the group because I want to help us all to grow as we're doing this. And I'll also leave summaries of the kids' books. So that's it. Contact me however you want. I'd love to hear from you. I really would. And I'm 5 minutes early. So thank you.